All right, welcome to the second episode of Galactic Reiki TV. I'm the host of the show, Max Makishov Rempel Steinberg, and I have with me Molly. Molly, please introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Molly Cooling, and I am a Reiki master and teacher as well as a massage therapist in Chicago.
And we're here in the Chicago city on the beach of Michigan Lake. It's a dog beach, so you can see dogs running behind. And we asked for the sun to show up, and it didn't show up. And anyway, we continue with our interview speaking about Reiki. We both practice. How long do you practice Reiki?
It's been about 4 years now.
And for me, it's about 5 years. But I didn't do it full time. I did it mostly as Reiki share and with the family, and certainly with myself, as you said before. It keeps me going. I do self Reiki all the time. Now, we wanted to talk about experiences. Something. Are you sure it's real? How do you know it's real?
Well, so different people need different things to know that something is real. Some of you out there probably need to know the science behind it. How does it work? And that's something we could certainly, talk about. For me, what tells me that something's real is through experience. It's nice to understand the mechanisms behind things, but until I experience something and know it for myself, it's hard for me to really internalize it. So that's the best way, and I've had many experiences. So even in the moments where I think this thing, I can't really see it totally, it seems amorphous, what is this energy thing, I can go back to those experiences and remind myself, yes, this is real. So
Double check the camera. Yeah, it's working? Okay. So, my experiences. I can feel it. Yeah. It's something which you can feel on your... I can feel it. It's something which I can really feel on my hands. When I send the energy from one hand to another, right now, I feel it just gently, but when you kind of warm up, you invite it, it takes a little bit of time and it comes and starts flowing. And if you're in a proper state, it flows really strongly and you can feel it. On this hand, it feels like bzz, 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 bzz. Very slightly, but very physical. It's physical feeling. On the other hand, I feel like a blow of air, very tight, very slight. And interestingly, when I do Reiki in open air, if there is wind, I cannot feel it as much because the the sensation from the wind is stronger for me than the sensation of Reiki. So it's very slight, but it's certainly there. Tell me more about it.
Well, so I experience Reiki in different ways. So the pathway of Reiki that we are a channel for Reiki. When we're giving Reiki, we're not giving you our energy. So the pathway comes through the crown of the head, through the heart, and then through the arms and out the hands. That's the traditional path that it travels. And so what happens for me oftentimes is that, especially if there's a lot of energy flowing, I'll really get warm, and it's warm from the inside out. And it's warm on the top of my body. And it feels like what somebody might call a hot flash is probably the easiest way to describe it. So I know that I'm not actually hot, but I feel like really warm coming, just radiating out from inside. So that will often happen. And I do get that zip, zip kind of feeling in my hands as well. Not always. Sometimes different things can happen. Sometimes I feel a magnetic pull or push in a certain area of somebody's body or my own body. And sometimes things feel sort of like water almost as well. So I might be putting my hand on somebody's hip, but it feels like it's moving really subtly like a wave and it feels sort of like watery to me, as if they're not solid, which in fact they're not. So
yeah, all of those sensations, you would say, a skeptic would say, we could imagine it could be self, that is what that word, self something. All right. But there were events where it was undeniable, and pretty often, like when I had these pains and the Reiki healer was healing the part of my body which was hurting, actually the pain became even stronger. And I knew it was a healing pain because they kind of just burned it out. They burned that negative energy or something out. They put the hands on. It's bearable, but barely bearable. Barely bearable, right? So it was like, oh, it's burning, oh, it's going away, oh, nice. So that was undeniable. That was something which I couldn't just bring on myself. It was absolutely real. And other people, when I do Reiki on them, they feel that heat, but which is not actually the physical heat. It's more like Reiki flowing and causing the sensation of heat, causing the warm up, but it's not really the heat is not the Reiki energy. The Reiki energy is not actually even measurable by physical devices, but its outcomes, its effects are measurable. Do you want to add more?
Well, you made me think of something, and now I've lost it. I was thinking about the Reiki coming off of people's hands. There's some research now coming out, which I try to present to students, because for some people we're taught to want research, and that so there have been studies that are more sort of subjective and ask people maybe going through cancer treatment who are receiving Reiki treatments, how do they feel, and they report less fatigue, less pain, less nausea, and fewer side effects. And some people could say that's the placebo effect, but there's also been experiments done on mice, and can't really argue a placebo effect on mice. So they injected, breast cancer, a fatal form of breast cancer into these mice. And the numbers were small. It was like 38 mice or something in the treatment group and maybe 38 in the control group. So it needs to be replicated further. But what they found is this was a fatal within 14 to 27 days was this form of breast cancer. And they took the control group of mice that were injected and they sent them off to like another city or something. And then they worked on, for an hour a day, I believe, somebody gave hands-on healing treatments to these mice in the treatment group. And something like around 90% of them lived a normal lifespan, 100% of them lived a normal lifespan. And something like 90% of the control group died within that 14 to 27 day predicted timeline. So for some people, that's like, whoa, that's more powerful than anything that I can tell you about my own experience, because that's looking at something from a more objective viewpoint. Now, am I saying that if you have cancer, I can cure cancer? No, but Reiki is actually used a lot in hospitals where people are going through cancer treatment, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And I can talk more about that. I have worked with people that are going through chemo, so.
While we're still on the topic of proofs, how does it feel when people do Reiki on you? How do you feel it? What is the sensation?
Well, it varies. It depends on the day, and I guess probably what's happening in my own energy field. Usually, I'll feel heat coming off of their hands. A lot of times, I sort of go into that meditative pre-dream state where you're sort of in and out and thoughts are not really present, which is a nice place to be. And oftentimes I'll feel subtle movements and sensations like through my body, maybe out my fingertip, down the limbs, out the fingertips, perhaps down the legs, out the toes. Sometimes different visions or words will come into my mind, but I'm not bringing them through thought. They're coming in through energy. Basically, there's information all around us. And when you open up to that, it's called intuition. It's called, being in tune with what's happening around us. So sometimes when I'm receiving Reiki, that will happen as well, which is a pretty powerful thing.
Yeah, very, very similar experiences. I have very similar ones. When the hand is on a certain place, on the belly maybe, there is a sensation of being a little paralyzed, stiffness there. And I welcome that sensation. And when I warn the clients, don't be afraid. You're in control. If you want to wake up, that's fine. But that's basically your sort of shifted to another dimension, and that's why you can't really move your body, because you're not fully there. No, you're not fully here. That's why there is certain paralysis. But it's very temporary. Nobody is paralyzed for sure. It's other way around. People get out more flexible. So yes, you kind of, you get in a trance state. It's kind of Reiki-induced trance state, and it's Reiki-induced trance, Reiki-induced altered state. I would call it Reiki state, and it's very reproducible. It's very reproducible. Most of the people get there. 80% of people get there very easily, especially the ones which are already into Reiki, the ones which already have received either Reiki or any other energy healings. They're very similar, like Qigong, Tai Chi, even acupuncture, yoga for certain. So people who have this sort of energy flows open, they are very good Reiki clients. They are very receptive to Reiki. So when you start working with them, we feel right away. And we feel chakras. Do you feel chakras?
Yeah, so that's a big focus. My teacher focused a lot on chakras, which are, these energy wheels or vortices or centers that run from there's many throughout the body, but the 7 main ones, right, from the top of the head, above the head, to the base of the spine. And they basically help us understand the connection between mind, body, spirit in a lot of ways, because each one is associated with a physical area of the body, but also aspects of your life. So I'll give you an example. The heart chakra, which is the 4th chakra, which kind of connects the 3 lower and the 3 upper chakras. That's a pretty powerful one to work on for a lot of people, because there's a lot of energy in the heart. Physically, it's associated with, not surprisingly, the heart, but also the lungs, arms, hands, so the general area. But in life, it's associated with connection and love and unity and compassion, empathy. So that helps people if we're working on their heart. If you tell them those things, it might be like, oh, I've had trouble breathing lately, and this is maybe, there's something going on with my lungs, but maybe it has something to do with that aspect of my life, because we also hold grief there. So perhaps they're grieving something. So it gives a nice way to think about the body as an energetic body that's being impacted by the life around us, and then how to potentially keep your energy in better balance by making those small changes or big changes in your life. So I do like to work when something's happening in someone's chakra. I will talk to them about that and give them more information about that chakra so that they can come to their own conclusions about it.
So how do you feel a chakra? Well, how does it feel? Does it feel physically in any way? Can you sense it physically?
Well, so I usually feel chakras by hovering over the body rather than touching that area of the body. I generally get more sensation that way because there's less distraction of that physical contact. So what I'll feel when I'm feeling a chakra is, it can feel really warm. It can feel really cold. It can feel like it's pulling me in or pushing me away. I talked earlier about feeling a lot of heat when there's a lot of energy flowing. So if I'm working over a certain chakra and I'm feeling that sort of hot flash feeling, to me that's a sign that, wow, this chakra's probably depleted. It's asking for more energy, and I stay and work there for as long as it takes for things to sort of calm down.
So give me example of feeling of the very strong and healthy chakra versus very other way around.
Well, some people say that there's different ways to think about, chakras can be sort of open or moving and flowing properly, and then they can be, some people say, blocked or completely sort of closed off and like stagnant. So those can feel different. Sometimes, warmth is generally associated with like more activity in an area, probably healthier. If things feel really cold and sort of like nothing's happening there, that's oftentimes, if you just stay there for a minute, things will start to move and you can see that it's opening up. So that's also another thing that I always just tell my students is, so we always do a chakra scan from the top all the way down, and if just something feels different than the rest, that's probably a good thing to work on. So, because every body is different, and so you might not know, for example, how things normally feel in Max's energy field, and it might be different than mine. And so just kind of comparing within somebody's body can help you have more information about where things might be a little bit off.
Yeah, very similar. My experience is very similar. I think I don't perceive it as heat and cold. I perceive it as something else. I don't describe it as heat as cold. But, some people, especially energetic ones, you can feel their chakras very strongly. Like you imagine the person laying down on a Reiki table, and you kind of scan the energy closer to the body, and then you kind of scan farther from the body, and you feel like a big fountain, like a big blow of air coming out. And it's sometimes, if the chakra is really open, you can feel a big area of like fountain there. And especially strong are actually the chakras, the crown chakras, in people who are not very balanced. At least that was my experience. Like the autistic people or teenagers with behavioral abnormalities, they have sometimes are so open, so they're all there, like they're not protected. And you can feel that very far, and very big fountain right out of the top of the head. The other alternative is, I had an experience with many Russian adult men, with very Russian men. It looks like Russian culture is blocking the heart chakra. When you feel the heart chakra, it's just completely not there. You just, everywhere else on the head, everywhere else you feel the flow of energy. When you come to the heart, it's like what I'm doing here, nothing happens. And again, it's a question of trust. Do they trust you to unblock it? And usually I kind of speak to them before unblocking it, but basically I try to warm it up and restore the energy flow. It's only males, and only in some cultures. Most of the other people have normal heart chakra, but in general, I guess, this traumatic education, traumatic upbringing, it closes heart chakra. So people are fully functional, but they don't feel feelings, they don't have emotions, and they control the emotions so hard that there is not much energy flow. They don't associate with others through heart. They associate through other chakras, but connect to others through other chakras, but not through heart. Our heart is closed off. And again, I tell them, don't go too fast, because your life is set up this way. Your work relationships are set up this way. If you just open your heart chakra, you become vulnerable. It takes building up new behavior patterns to be able to connect to people through heart chakra and not to be hurt. Actually, it's nice to be hurt, but if you have a way to recover, if you can receive Reiki, if you are supported by your friends and family, then you can become vulnerable and open yourself to others. Be hurt, but in a way which doesn't damage you badly, which damages you just enough so you can recover. There is one more thing I wanted to mention about chakras. Sometimes it feels like a little line, sprinkle, like a line coming out of and sometimes they're not straight. It kind of, you can trace it, and when you move the hand, you can feel like that sprinkle. You can feel it as it stays in place, and you kind of just move your hand around. You can even trace it in the air. It's very tangible. It's very bound to the space around us. It's actually, it's non-physical, but we can sense it as conscious beings. Many other topics rise up. What do we want to talk about?
Well, one of the things we talked about off camera was, maybe examples of significant experiences. So, there's one experience that I had that was incredibly, incredibly powerful. I was actually outside on a day like today at a Reiki share where people, get together and work on one another that are all Reiki practitioners. It's a way to practice and build community.
Let me interrupt you. So Reiki share is quite structured event, right? It's People either are sitting in a chair or laying on a Reiki table, and they just do a regular Reiki session, but instead of one practitioner, you might have several working on one, which is just fine, and it works even better. And then they take turns, and now, like after 15 minutes or half an hour, we take turn, and you get on the table and you tell what's wrong with you and what you want to get balanced, rebalanced, healed, and it worked great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really nice opportunity for, especially, if you're newer to Reiki and you feel like you want to practice on other people who understand what it is. I think that for me was really nice. So, and actually, if anyone's interested, there's the Midwest Reiki community, which I'm a member of, and we meet twice a month in Chicago.
How do you find it online?
So you can go to midwestreikicommunity.com or .org. I believe either one will work. And we also, if you look for Midwest Reiki Community on Meetup, that will tell you when we're meeting. But we meet the first Tuesday of the month and the third Saturday. So there's opportunities.
What parts of Chicago is that?
So it's located at a healing studio called Urban Escape. It's at 1049 North Ashland, which is sort of like West Town area, more or less. Yeah. So.
And you were telling about your experience.
Yes. So before this group met at Urban Escape, thank you to Neil Baldiga, the owner. He allows us to meet there. We were sort of homeless, but luckily it was summer in Chicago and we could meet in a park. So we were meeting in a park, and I was working with a relatively large group that day. There were maybe 4 or 5 of us in my group, and we would each take turns, receiving. And when it was my turn to receive, they asked me, Reiki always goes to your greatest good, and that's the concept behind it, is that your higher self knows what you ultimately need to heal, and it may or may not be what you think in your very small brain. But that day, my number one concern was my right shoulder. It had been bothering me for, a few months, and it was the kind of thing where if I woke up in the morning and it hurt, it would hurt all day, and then I would go to bed, and then maybe tomorrow it wouldn't hurt, but if it hurt tomorrow, it would hurt all day tomorrow. There was never relief if I woke up with it. And so it's a pretty nagging thing. So I said, if you can work on that, that would be great. So I laid down on the blanket. It was a beautiful day. They worked on me for about 15 minutes. And during the session, I forgot all about my shoulder, but went sort of into this trance Reiki state that Max mentioned. And I had a vision. And I don't often have a lot of visions of things, but when I do, I'm pretty sure that, okay, that's not me thinking this. It could be certain that it's information coming in from somewhere else. And it was a picture of my dad's face. And my dad had passed away less than 2 months prior to this day that I was receiving Reiki. And it was his face, and he was laughing. And he was just happy and laughing. And it was really, really powerful for me, because if anyone, if you've lost a family member who was hospitalized and hooked up to tubes and didn't look like themselves anymore, it's hard to get that image out of your head. And so for me, I had only been able to see him as that man in a hospital bed who was not conscious and didn't look like himself. And so since he had passed away, that's the only image I could ever draw up. And in this moment of Reiki, I saw him laughing and happy. And to me, that was a message that he was fine. He's not in that hospital bed anymore. He's moved on. He's passed on to something better. And it made me feel such a relief. And so the session ended, and I told the group what happened. And a little while later, I realized my shoulder didn't hurt anymore because I had forgotten all about it. And what was very interesting is I had gone to a medium very shortly after my dad passed away, and my dad had come through very strongly, and she had said, if you feel something in your right shoulder, that's probably your dad. But I had forgotten all about it because I had been having the pain since before he passed on, so I didn't associate it. But the pain has never come back in the same way, and that was 3 years ago. So that was really powerful. It made me feel like I didn't need to have the same type of grief that I was. It lifted some of that grief and the physical pain.
Yes, that's very profound. There are many profound lessons right in this story. Yeah, one is about death. Somehow, especially in Western culture, there is so much death on the screen, like in television, everywhere, in movies. It's the whole culture of kind of dealing with death, but it's not dealing in a healthy way. It's being scared of it, I guess. Yeah, taking death as part of life. Death is just, remember in Forrest Gump, death is just a part of life, right? So accepting it as we accept birth. I mean, birth is a celebration, and death we don't celebrate by some reason. We grieve it, right? But it's part of life. So that's one thing. It is to be expected that everyone dies. It is to be expected. Another thing is that why do we remember their sad part of the life? We remember the cripple, we remember the pain, especially if it was unexpected, like an accident or stuff like that. We are so obsessed about the way the person exited from life, which could be important, but often it is not. It's nothing. Especially if it is death from cancer, it's ugly, but it is not their life. It is just an episode in their life. Why don't we focus on something? On something positive. So it is a movie. In your mind, scroll backward in that movie. Scroll to the happiest moments and bring up that person, especially the child of that person. You possibly didn't know that person as a child, but get their old photographs and put them on the wall, the happiest, smiliest. Right, smiliest, and then connect to those. Let the dying person, let them go. Let them go, and that will heal you, right? Yeah, let them live their life as a spirit. Don't hang up on that moment of death. Don't hang on it. Let them go. They were here, and thank them for being here, and then they're gone, and wish them best there. Let them enjoy their return to their home, I guess. And they're watching you. They're proud of you. That's the main message we get from there. We are here playing on the field, and they are watching from the other side, helping one way or another. I guess we finish on that topic. We finish next our second episode, and I'm Max Rempel. My site is galacticreiki.com. My phone number. Okay, I invite Reiki clients. I offer Reiki sessions, and I'm starting Galactic Reiki and Reiki 1 and 2 classes. So sign up for these classes on the site, galacticreiki.com. If you're interested, join Galactic Reiki meetup at Chicago. And I'm located at North Center, Irving Park, and Northwestern and Belmont. And my number is 872-704-0008, and my email is max@galacticreiki.com. And you please, Molly, please announce your sites and phone numbers.
Sure. So you can find me online at mollycooling.com. That's MOLLYCOELING.com. And you can look for me at Molly Cooling Therapeutic Massage and Reiki on Facebook. My email is molly.cooling, COELING@gmail.com. My phone number is 773-288-9867. And I book massage, Reiki, or a combination of the two sessions. And I also teach Reiki level 1 and 2. Thank you.
Thank you. And see you in the next episode.